Hey everyone, Sycra here, and this is the first in a series of videos that I'm going to be doing, and what's playing right now is just images from studies that I did over a year, and these are from the video called A Year of Studies, and I was going to wait a year and then do a video called Another Year of Studies. But what I started to realize is that there would be a lot of content, like this would be probably a 2 or 3 hour video, and even then I might not be able to go into as much detail as I'd like. So rather than making a super long video, I thought it would be better to make chunks, or to break it down into chunks and then talk about exactly what I'm doing or what steps I'm making. So in the last video, in the Year of Studies video, I got a lot of people talking about how I seem to not have much of a direction, and I felt this too. And so in the beginning, I'm going to be pretty directionless, but then it's going to be about how I find my direction and my path. So without further ado, let's get to the first episode. Alright, so I should begin by explaining why I sound differently. I've decided to speed up the video for 2 reasons. One, I think I sound better. Maybe you disagree, but I like hearing my voice better this way because I hate hearing my voice the way it normally is. And 2, it's gonna help us get through things faster. So shorter videos, but the same amount of content. Yay! So, alright, so starting here, it's basically where I'm still painting and trying to figure out, okay, let me play around with reflections and shiny skin, and this person looks like they're going to fall over. But yeah, it's very lost, and I hadn't incorporated the message of the last video, which is find a direction. Here it's still bad anime stuff, the proportions are wonky, and the pose is all over the place. And here I'm doing some figure drawing. So okay, let's do more sharp stuff, because I figured, I made this commitment, and this is why the title of this thing is Pointy Chins. I made a commitment that I wanted a sharp style, and I knew it had pointy noses and pointy chins and pointy ears, and I kind of knew how the faces would look. Now, people really responded to the chins and not anything else. Like, there's a lot that was pointy. Even here you can see the eyes are very pointy, but everyone said, oh, I'm doing pointy chins, so I figured, okay, fine. I'll just make it so I always do pointy chins no matter what. And it's a restriction, but I think it helps to remind me of what I'm aiming for, because I wanted a style that was representative of me. And people say, you should just draw and don't worry about style, and your own style will naturally come out. But to that, I think, like, yeah, for more tame styles, that's true, but I didn't want a tame style. I wanted a pretty exaggerated style. This is just some stuff for a project that didn't go through. So yeah, I wanted a very exaggerated style. And then it's like, well, do I look at the world and see everybody with pointy chins and pointy noses? And no. But I like that. I like sharp things. I like things that have an edge to them. And so that's why I made this decision, this conscious effort to at least let me consistently put down what I do know I want to see in my style. Okay, so you want to see sharp things, you like the pointy chins, fine, make it so you always do pointy chins. And so here's some more figure drawings, and here I decided to color these images, and I'm using the same technique I always use with the cell shading now, because again, I wanted to hone my coloring technique. I didn't want to be doing paintings half the time and then cell shading half the time, because the thing is, I've mentioned this before, but what you do is what you get good at, right? So if I want to get good at one style and I'm doing 3 or 4 or 5 different styles, it's going to be difficult. Now, I'm planning to keep my painting thing as part of a style, so I guess there's two variations on the style. There's more painted and more cell shaded. But in the end, I think I can handle 2 styles, and I can't handle 3 or 4 or 5, or at least I won't be able to do them well. So I think this is a good show of color balance and the magic and wonder of color balance and overlay, because this is basically the flats are filled in, and I'm not really happy with these designs. They're just whatever. But then here I added shadows and overlay, and I think I added a color balance to it to bring everything into harmony. And although the designs are whatever, the colors at least are working a lot better. And more figure drawing. So yeah, it's really important for me, or at least it was, to do a lot of figure drawing, and I wanted to, as soon as I could, get it so I'm not just drawing what I see, I'm not just drawing the figure as I see them, I'm drawing them exaggerated in my style. Then it's a case of, well, what is my style? And so I'm doing this thing where I'm both doing figure drawings and trying to figure out my style at the same time. And I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't think it was very helpful for me, but I like this image. This is cool. The lady with very long legs, and I like the attitude in it, so it's still a good exercise. Now here I'm trying to do more stuff, and I really like this thing that I've been doing where the hair sort of is off the body. It's not a thing. That really makes sense, because part of my thought process on my style is I don't need things to make sense as long as they're cool. But this is a very conscious decision, so it means I am very much an illustrator. I'm not going to become someone who is able to do something and then someone says, okay, well, this looks realistic, let's see this in real life. It's more of, this doesn't work in real life. A little bit like anime. You know, in anime, people have weird expressions. Sometimes their eyes just turn into X's, or they get the teardrop on the side of their head, or whatever. It's very malleable, and it's more about conveying the idea than necessarily being real. Like if you saw the stuff that happens in anime, if they did that in live action, that would look weird. So yeah, here I was still experimenting with colors, and I was thinking like, okay, should I go very high key? Instead of having like this image, right? It's got darks, you've got your blacks, and you've got your lights and midtones and stuff. In this, you don't have very dark colors. It's all very maybe mid-tone to light things, and what that allows you to do is go a bit more colorful. So I wasn't sure. I kind of like the look, but I wasn't sure, like, okay, is this where I want to head? So again, it's an experiment, and more work stuff. And here again, more experiments with color, sticking to the cell shading technique. So the method is the same, but it's more, well, what do I do? How much do I, for instance, in this one, it's cell shaded at first, but there is a bit of painting to it. So it's like, okay, how many gradients do I use, and in what way do I use them? So here I decided to go a bit more realistic. I can see that this person's face is really messed up. But something I would do, I guess, is there were times where I just didn't feel like drawing stylized things, and so this to me is actually much easier, doing stuff from a photo and just making it look realistic and doing this kind of like shading, this cross-hatching and stuff. This is all easy to me anyway. It's stuff that I'm comfortable with. It's not requiring nearly as much brain power as doing the style things. Even if the style doesn't look that good, it still requires a lot more thought because it's from imagination. And here's this person, and okay, they got colored. Again, being sharp, trying to put sharp lines wherever I can, but still I was struggling at this point. Here I'm painting it, so again, it's like, okay, do I stop it here at a very cel-shaded, yeah, how would you say it? condition, or here where it's more painted, and do I go even further than this? And I don't know. So here I did a study, but with coloring it realistically while drawing it in my style, or at that point my style, because it did change, but this is kind of the result, and it looks a bit weird. And these were done in an hour, so I didn't have time to really detail it. Had I spent more time, I could have taken it further, and maybe, I don't know if it would have been a good exercise or not. At this point, in hindsight, I can see that it probably wouldn't. But doing this, I realized, like, I don't really understand breasts, so let's try and understand them. And I think I looked at a couple tutorials on DeviantArt, maybe, on how to do breasts. But anyway, it was this idea that, you know, treat them like water, bags filled with water. And so I tried to do this from imagination, realizing this is very difficult for me. And so I tried here to break it down into more realism, because what I found is, for me, it's very hard to just look at a tutorial and follow it. It's much easier for me to learn directly from life, to see something and then copy it, or in this case I think it was a photo, but still, it's like it's something from life that you observe, and then you take what you see and then you simplify it. And then here was this idea of, okay, so let's experiment with the sizes of breasts and what happens. And I think a lot of these are really messed up, especially on the larger side, because there's no rib, like the rib cage should be under here, so this should be having a much more horizontal or diagonal angle rather than just straight up and down. But at least I was thinking about it, I guess. I don't know. Just trying to be more well-rounded, and not be limited to just doing breast one size, whatever. So here we go, more style studies, trying to figure out, okay, how far do I want to push things? Do I want to keep it more rounded and like this? I think this is pretty cool as a style. It's not quite working, but it's kind of interesting. I like this one. This face, I think, is pretty nice. And the amount of negative space, like if you look at this mouth and really how big it is, it's tiny, and yet it conveys the expression, which I thought was neat. So there's that. And now here it's the same thing, again with that head hair thing, which isn't really hair because it's not really hair. It's like, I figure, well, fine, I am not going to treat my style seriously as something that should exist. And I had a teacher who, when I was learning to paint, I took lessons from him, and he was teaching me to paint what I saw, so realistically, in oil paint. And so when you do that and you're doing portraits, the likeness has to be really exact, right? You can't mess up on the face or it will stop looking like the person that you want to draw. So instead, he's like, okay, so on the face you have to be very careful, and you got to make sure you got it right. You get it right, and you've got to be very strict with yourself. But when it comes to the hair, you can be more free. You can have more life and energy, and that's going to be where you can express yourself and make those nice brush strokes. So I always remembered that. I remembered like, oh, hair is something I can be free with. And then when I started to think about it in terms of my style, I'm like, well, okay, if I can do that, why don't I just push it and make it so it doesn't even have to make sense? It doesn't have to be attached to the head. It doesn't have to, it can just flow any which way. And maybe it's not a good idea, but whatever. And I also, like, I don't know what this is, but I think it's kind of interesting. And this guy is, makes me laugh anyway. Yeah, I like this girl here. And the style, again, it's coming along, but it's still kind of weird because, as you can see, the face looks quite young. And manga does this a lot, where you have almost like kids' faces or heads on bodies with breasts that are far too mature for the child who possesses them, who, if you look at their biography, is probably 27. But anyway, the point is, like, yeah, it's still strange, and I don't know what this guy's doing, but he's being himself, and that's fine. So here, again, being sharp and also loose, you can see there's a lot of rounded shapes that I'm experimenting with, but also focusing on appeal, because that to me is very important, this idea of appeal. And this thing, like, what does, the perspective's off, but what does a pointy chin look like when it's looking up? And these, for me anyway, they're very difficult and very challenging. Here it's a bit more caricatured, more boxy. And again, experimenting with the hair thing. How crazy can I make it? Is it hair? Is it a decoration? I don't know. And here's my character from Affinity and some other stuff. Staying away from pointy chins for a change, just because it gets old after a while. But again, it's all about experimenting, I think, and seeing what is working, what is not working, and doing the things that work more. And again, it's not something that I could just do without, because if I just drew and I only drew what comes naturally to me, I would probably be doing a lot of very realistic things, but that, I don't know if that's really who I am or where I want to go. Yeah, so this is weird but interesting, I guess, now that I look at it. And some more stuff. So again, the style thing. So I think I did this guy first, and then I wanted to see, well, okay, so what would he look like if he had a body, and what would his body look like? I got as far as this. And I think with these ones, I'm getting a bit closer to where I want to head, especially in the body proportion. You can see the bodies are, like with this one, it's a bit more realistic, I suppose, but then with this it's less. You can see here clearly she has a very small rib cage, a much bigger hips, and then the legs are quite long and the limbs are quite skinny. For these younger characters, they're even more skinny. So it's a step in the right direction. It's a small step, but it's a step. Again, here his legs are almost as skinny as his arms, or maybe even here it's skinnier. Experimenting. I want to have a lot of cool dynamic poses in my finished work, because you kind of have to treat it like you're imagining your work is already done in the future, how it would look. That's what you want to aim for, that's what you want to practice. So I feel in the future I want to be doing really cool dynamic poses, not necessarily making much sense, just looking cool for the sake of being cool. That might change over time, but right now, that's kind of where I'm heading. So it's like, okay, well then let's practice with perspective and a bit more dynamic. And just color, I guess. Trying to do different things, and this is some, I think this is from imagination, trying to make it look kind of like when I have reference, because it's still very easy, or much easier for me to do figure drawings when I have something to look at. Here it's very strange, because the style of the head is exaggerated this far, which is completely different to this, and then the hands are almost realistic, so it's really not working. But again, this is all part of learning and improving and figuring out what you can get away with and what you can't. I wonder who this is. I'm not sure if anyone's going to be able to tell who it is, but anyway, it definitely looks like him. And this is back to painting. So I mentioned that I would do probably two styles. One is the cel shaded, and then one would be more of this. But in terms of the drawing and the shapes, they're the same. It's not very different. So crazy eyes and I don't know, a lot darker, I would say. The values tend to be a lot darker, a lot more glowy stuff. And I'm not saying this is well done, but it's just an idea of like, yeah, maybe I could head in this direction as well. And yeah, just, I don't know what this is. Strange again, painting. And this one is cool. I actually like this one a lot. I think the proportions are working a lot better. Here you can see like the fingers are sharper, which is a lot better than that other one that I did where the hands were very realistic. This is more cohesive, and the hair is very sharp. And it's not perfect, it's not done yet, but it's heading in the right direction. And I like this one, because I realized I'm not telling many stories with my work. And my thinking behind it is that sort of comes after you figure out what people look like. You know, you should be able to draw a person and then add clothes to them and then put them in a story. And maybe I'm wrong with this, but this is kind of the idea I have, is that, you know, take it one step at a time. Don't try and overwhelm yourself by doing everything at once. Because if I did, sure, I would get better at everything, but I don't think I would get better as fast. It's more, concentrate your, at least this is what I'm telling myself, concentrate your energy and make it very focused for a short period of time in one subject. Then master that subject instead of just getting better at it. Like, try and take it to mastery and then go to the next one and then go to the next one. So each time you're mastering your skills instead of just taking all the skills to a little better, a little better, a little better, and none are really mastered. So again, playing around, experimenting. Well, what if I do arms like this? What if I do arms like this? What about this? Is this cool? Is this stupid? Yep. And some strange head thing. I don't know. This is not making a lot of sense. But yeah, so that's it for this episode, and next week I'm going to be going through the same thing, but this time I will be focusing on expressions, and all these are in chronological order, so sometimes I jump around, like, yes, I'm talking about expressions, but it doesn't mean it's only going to be about expressions. It's going to be whatever I did during that period, but in that period I tended to focus on whatever. So this case is expressions. So I hope my different voice didn't annoy you. If it really does, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not sure if I'm going to fix it or not, because, yep, it's a good reason. Alright, so hope that helped, and thanks for watching.